This film is entitled The Revenge of Plant Film and tells the story of a beautiful girl named Luoqi who is infected with a parasite after receiving a flower from the man she likes. The film opens by showing the condition of a city and buildings that appear to be damaged and appear to be no longer inhabited. After that, we were shown a man who was in an old building which was overgrown with lots of grass, and it seems this man is looking for something. And this is where the film begins. One day at a university, a senior professor was teaching his class. He was Professor Huo. He taught accompanied by his teaching assistant Zheng Wen. Professor Huo is a lecturer who is teaching about changes in plants. You can see all the students sitting in his class taking photos of the whiteboard so they can revise their notes. However, different from this girl, she is named Luoqi. Instead of taking photos on board, she even took a photo of her assistant, Zheng Wen, because Luoqi had liked the teaching assistant for a long time. While she was busy with Zheng Wen's photo on her cell phone, her friend was shocked by a photo of the body of a student who had died recently. Meanwhile, Luo's friend, Lily, said that the student had died tragically. Meanwhile, at the crime scene, detectives found many green plants around his body. Detectives immediately investigated the case of this student's death because it was very mysterious, especially since the outside of her body was greenish-gray as if she had been poisoned by someone. Then, after class ended, Luo went to the teaching assistant and gave him a plant as a gift. With a little shyness, Luo finally expressed her feelings. Luoqi said that she liked Zheng Wen, but the assistant politely refused by reminding him that Luoqi was a student and he was a teaching assistant, so they are unlikely to have a relationship like that. After the rejection, Luo went outside and confided in Lily. Lily comforted him and said that Zheng Wen was just an ordinary man like most people. She also added that many other men are better than Zheng Wen. However, Luoqi still hasn't given up and still hopes that she still has a chance to get close to Zheng Wen. Hearing Luoqi's determination, Lily finally encouraged her to be braver. Not long after, the sound of music came from the campus radio speakers. Lily also asked her to dance to get rid of the turmoil in Luoqi's heart. At first, they were embarrassed, but in the end, they danced together happily. In the distance, Zheng Wen secretly looked at Luoqi who was dancing with a smile and left after her. Then, not long after, a student arrived there carrying flowers. It turned out that he was a fan of Luoqi and wanted to wish her a happy birthday. Lily, who had just said goodbye to her dorm room, was now shuddering in fear when she saw her face where green pimples appeared as if plants were about to grow. Not wanting to bother, she covered it with powder. The film switches to Professor Hu and Zheng Wen. The professor's wife has just died. To take care of her funeral, Professor Hu plans to take leave and entrust his class to Zheng Wen. Before leaving, the professor offered Zheng Wen a drink from the bottle and invited him to drink together. However, after Zheng Wen drank it, he immediately fell unconscious, while the professor deliberately didn't drink it. He then took a flower pot in front of him and its roots emitted a very shining green light. The professor then took out an injection fluid from his pocket and filled it into a syringe and then injected it into Zheng Wen's hand. It turns out that Professor Hu was conducting illegal experiments and wanted to see whether the plant could grow and regenerate in Zheng Wen's body. Therefore, he injected this liquid into Zheng Wen's body to see the results. However, when the results that appeared on the computer did not show an increase, it was still 0%. This means Zheng Wen's body can't react to the liquid at all, aka it's immune. After that, the professor left the plant and Zheng Wen was there. Meanwhile, back to Luo who has now returned to her dorm room. She then called her friend who had already gone home to her room. However, Lily said that she just didn't feel well and couldn't go out now. Hearing this, Luo let Lily rest so that her friend's condition could improve. Luoqi also continued her hobby of painting. On the other hand, we are taken to a scene of a woman who is going to take a shower in a women's dormitory. When walking to the bathroom, she seemed to be hallucinating seeing vines everywhere. And while she was taking a shower, a horror thing happened. The shower water where she was washing her hair suddenly turned green and was surrounded by plants. She screamed out of fear and asked for help. Back again to Luoqi's dorm room. She has now finished painting. It turns out that you are good at painting. And the painting this time is a picture of Zheng Wen whose room is right in front of the window of Luoqi's dormitory room. After it was finished, she intended to give it directly to Zheng Wen. On the way, Luo met the girl who was bathing earlier in the bathroom. Now she looks shocked because of the incident and was taken by her friend somewhere. Luoqi also saw the girl, but she still didn't realize what had happened. Then, Luoqi arrived in front of Zheng Wen's room. She then tried to knock on the door. However, because Zheng Wen was not there, she was waiting there for him. Then, she was surprised by the arrival of a woman who wanted to enter Zheng Wen's room. Luoqi became increasingly curious about who the woman was because it seemed that she had a relationship with Zheng Wen. After all, she knew where Zheng Wen's hidden door key was. Meanwhile, Zheng Wen, who had fainted after being tested by the professor, is now conscious and a little confused. Because he didn't remember anything, he decided to leave there, carrying the flowers that he thought had been thrown away by his professor. Returning to Zheng Wen's room, Luo is now waiting for him with the woman. Because Zheng Wen never came, the woman excused herself and left a message with Luo Qi to inform Zheng Wen of her arrival. She also gave advice, if Luo Qi wants to be Zheng Wen's lover, then Luo Qi should be more active in approaching him. Luo Qi became even more curious and asked who she was. Then the woman pointed to the photo there and said she was Zheng Wen's college friend. Now, you realize that the woman is Xuman Liu, who is Zheng Wen's ex-girlfriend. After Xuman Liu left, Luo was now very free to check Zheng Wen's room. She also tried to open the laptop there, but because she used a password, it was a little difficult for her. And not long after, Zheng Wen arrived at his room. He was then surprised that you could get into it. Then Luo told him what happened earlier. She also directly asked Zheng Wen if he didn't have feelings for her, why the laptop used the password for Luo Qi's birthday. Because he couldn't avoid it any longer, Zheng Wen finally admitted his feelings. However, because they are students and teachers, he cannot accept Luo Qi. Zheng Wen also said that he used to love a girl who was also his classmate. But they broke up afterward because of ego differences and the woman got a job offer at a company. Hearing the story about her ex, Luo Qi became very jealous and chose to leave there. However, Zheng Wen stopped her and said that he had always liked Luo Qi, and that's why he has several photos of Luo Qi on his computer, but he couldn't make his relationship more than anything else because of their social status. Luo Qi also understood and was determined to finish college so they could be together. Zheng also agreed with this. As a promise, he gave Luo a plant that he got from the professor's room earlier. Luo Qi returned to her room feeling happy because she knew the fact that her love was not one-sided. She took the plant and sprayed it with water, but accidentally injured her finger by scratching the leaves of the plant. She felt strange even though the plant didn't have thorns. She chose not to think about it and bandaged the wound with plaster. She also tried to call Lai Lai because she was worried. However, because there was no answer yet and it was already evening, Luo Qi thought that Lily had fallen asleep quickly. In the middle of the night, when everyone was asleep, the plant began to glow with its roots and put out plant branches that passed through the ground and reached Luo Qi's bed until finally wrapping around her body. Luckily, this was just a dream. Without realizing it, the day had changed. She also tried to look at Lily's bed. The atmosphere became tense when she saw that green liquid had fallen on her bed. Out of curiosity, she slowly moved forward and opened the bed curtains. However, she was very surprised to see that Lily had become a corpse in front of her. The body of the lily is covered with plants, just like the first case shown earlier. A few moments later, the police finally arrived and started an investigation. They also asked for information from Luo Qi. Zheng Wen also came to comfort Luo Qi. Then the police showed Zheng Wen about the plant. They asked if he knew anything about the fluid from this plant. However, Zheng Wen answered that he had never seen roots or plants like that in his life. Furthermore, because the campus situation was increasingly chaotic, the police then declared a lockdown status for their campus. The officers there also directed them to immediately gather for observation and disinfect the campus area. Meanwhile, when Luo Qi and Zheng Wen leave the dormitory, Luo Qi again hallucinates that the plants have taken over all the students living there and all the students have plants around their necks. Not long after, Luo Qi came back to her senses and saw the news that appeared on TV which said that Professor Huo needed to be arrested. He was on the run because he had injected the virus into many students and the effects of the virus were now spreading rapidly. Hearing this news, Luo Qi became even more convinced that Professor Hu was the mastermind behind the death of the lilies and the plant virus because of the lily's diary which said that she was the subject of the professor's experiments. Then, Luo Qi asked permission to go to the toilet. Arriving at the toilet, because she felt something strange, she removed the plaster on her finger. She was very surprised to see that her fingers now looked like plants were about to grow. Even though she was scared, she tried to pull it. Meanwhile, several people wearing PPE have now come and told Zheng Wen and the others to go to the gym hall so that they can all be tested for who is infected and who is not because of this virus. On their way to the gym hall, they met Xuman Liu. She also said that previously she worked at a large pharmaceutical company and had collaborated with Professor Hu. She also explained that their experiment is about changing genes in humans so that we can save humans from many diseases. However, the professor was against it and started doing some illegal experiments by combining plant genes and animal genes. Then the professor started making a dangerous deadly virus. Because the professor was her senior, she tried to stop it. But the professor fired him and now she is investigating all this. And what's more frightening, over the last while he has started experimenting on her students. Seeing the closeness of the two of them, Luo Qi felt jealous and chose to leave. Zheng Wen, who realized that Luo had gone, was now trying to look for him. It turns out that Luo Qi chose to hide in Zheng Wen's room. She was afraid of being examined because her body had been infected with the virus. Meanwhile, Zheng Wen is now being chased by health workers because he ran away from the examination. Zheng Wen finally found Luo Qi, who turned out to be in his room. Luo also asked Zheng Wen to stay away from her and showed him her hands, which had been infected with the virus, and her face had turned green. Zheng Wen then tried to calm her down and help Luo and said that everything would be fine because she would be treated by health workers. Meanwhile, in the quarantine area, the student who was infected in the bathroom is now dying from the virus. The doctors tried to save her, but fate said otherwise and the student died. Here it is shown that the match rate for the virus to the student does not reach 100%. Returning to the dorm room, Luo tries to find information regarding the virus spread by the professor. She opened Lily's email and became increasingly convinced that the professor was Lily's sugar daddy. Therefore, she can go to college without thinking about the costs at all. Lily also mentioned that she was often invited to the professor's place, which was very close to a lighthouse. At the same time, the health workers had now arrived in the hallway of Zheng Wen's room. They checked the room occupants and sprayed disinfectant so that the impact of the virus could be reduced. They also knocked on every door. When they knocked on Zheng Wen's door, Luo panicked and accidentally dropped the glass beside him, making the health workers want to break down their door even more. Luo was very scared because she had been infected and they were going to experiment on her. Until finally Zheng Wen managed to persuade Luo to come and promise not to leave her alone. After undergoing tests, Luo was taken to an isolation room and the doctors injected her with several sedatives. Meanwhile, Zheng Wen, whose results were negative, was taken to another room. A while later, all the doctors met each other and asked Xuman Lu for an explanation. Doctors now know that the virus is dangerous as its effects appear to damage the brain and damage the rest of the nervous system. But it is not something widespread and dangerous that can be transmitted through touch or air. However, the virus can spread because it is injected into the victim's body. The doctors felt that this did not pose a threat to anyone and compared it to poison, which, if injected, could be dangerous to a person's life. The doctors were relieved after learning about this because they didn't need to worry too much and would immediately lift the lockdown status there. However, Xuman Lu told the doctors that this case could be different because the previous victim Luo had a body structure and genetic type that matched such a virus, and it can produce a new form of virus that is completely different from all other viruses. This means that Luo's status will be a big threat. However, everyone sitting there who were doctors did not believe and took Xuman Lu's words seriously. They also said it was just Xuman Lu's illusion and added that such a thing would not happen. They will also open the lockdown status so that everyone can live a normal life. Long story short, Zheng Wen met Xuman Lu and they decided that they would go to the place where the professor was and look for an antidote to the virus to save Luo. Zheng Wen also said that he had found out about the professor's position from Lily's email. They immediately rushed to leave because they were worried that something would happen to Luo. When they arrived at the professor's house, they tried to enter and look for the professor. They also saw that there were plants everywhere, even all kinds of plants they had never seen before were here. They finally met the professor who was sitting in his chair. However, a strange thing happened. He didn't move at all. As soon as they get close and touch it, a huge insectivorous plant comes out of its back and tries to eat it. Xuman Lu also tried to attack him by exploding flammable liquid at the plant monster. After the plants and the professor burned, they checked the professor's computer and they found an explanation for this virus. If the body is compatible with this virus, the match level is 100%, then the virus will enter the body and the plant will start to grow. The plant will not die and will continue to grow in such a way that it will cover the entire neighborhood and the entire city and will continue to grow and will become immortal. And if a person's body is not suitable, 0%, then that person will survive the virus forever. And this is the reason why Zheng Wen was fine when the professor put the virus into his body. Because the virus is not compatible with his body, no changes occur in his body. The professor also said that he had also found the antidote vaccine and he kept it in a storage box. While Zheng Wen was checking, Xuman Lu took the opportunity to copy the information data from the computer to her USB to hand over to the company so that the professor's research could be developed and cover their company so as not to be tracked by the police. Zheng Wen found out about this and they argued with each other. Finally, Xuman Lu sprayed chili powder on Zheng Wen, causing him to faint, and the antidote vaccine broke when he fell. Meanwhile, Luo is currently experiencing a critical period because the virus continues to spread until finally Luo is unable to survive and dies from it. The doctors who treated her also felt sorry for Luo because apart from being infected, she was also abandoned by her boyfriend who preferred to go with his ex, even though the doctors didn't know what happened. However, because Luo's compatibility level with the virus is increasing and is at 99%, Luo is currently not truly dead. She seemed to hear the doctor's conversation. Returning to the professor's house, when Xuman Lu was about to leave there, suddenly the plant she had burned came back to life and put out a sharp branch and immediately stabbed Xuman Lu in the neck, killing him. Meanwhile, Luo's match rate has now reached 100%, and the health workers who thought Luo was dead now put her in a body bag. However, when she lifted it, a green liquid appeared dripping from the bag. and Luoqi's revenge began. When the body bag was opened, Luoqi immediately attacked the health workers and filled all the rooms there with her vines without any remaining. Zheng Wen, who is now conscious, tries to return to campus and looks for Luoqi. However, the situation there was chaotic because all the health workers were dead and plants were everywhere. He also tries to look for Luo in every corner of the room until now we see the whole city covered in Luo's revenge in the form of vines. We are taken back to the beginning of the film again when Zheng Wen looks for Luo in the classroom which is filled with vines because he hasn't found Luo. And a few moments later, he saw the same painting that Luo had made for him. Zheng Wen smiled after seeing her and began to remember Luo, and the film ends.